I want to take a trip down the memory lane back to 2014 when feminism was in full swing and the moral panic was kicking up a notch. And you have the mainstream media and other publications being deeply and gravely concerned about geek culture. And of course, the organizers of various conventions, whether it was anime convention or comic books, they responded to those concerns. And all of a sudden, you saw these posters everywhere. Cosplay is not consent. And those posters deeply offended me. Like, I found them so gross that I would have never walked into a convention that had those posters. And I had to reflect, like, why is it that I had this natural sentiment of disgust towards the posters? Like, why is that, right? And the answer is, it's because they were so disparaging, right? Like the people that were running the convention would assume that not only is it that I don't know the law of the land, that I am so uneducated just because I'm a geek, and I don't know that if a woman dresses however she wants, I still not allowed to put hands on her because that's sexual assault, right? So they would assume that I don't know that. They would assume that they do know that and they are better than me in order to educate me, right? And it's also like disgusting because I would say, imagine if you do that in a neighborhood where you have a lot of minorities and you put a sign, just because I leave my bike without a lock doesn't mean you have the right to take it. Wouldn't that be disgusting? Wouldn't that be racist? Right? Like, it is. So if that's not okay, why would you do it at a convention? And then it's also the fact that they were mentally deficient. Like, I'm sorry, if you genuinely believe that if you tell a criminal that what he is doing is a crime, he won't do it, then you're an absolute moron. You're a cretin. Like, what are you doing in a position of leadership? Step the fuck down. The idea that if you were to tell people, hey, don't pickpocket because pickpocketing is a crime, and all of a sudden it's safe to walk into the metro, right? Like if you genuinely think this is how you need to stop crime, you're a cretin. I don't know what else to say. And what they were doing is also slandering the good name of geeks. I mean, most geeks that I knew were law-abiding citizens, but when you go to a convention, it looks like you're entering the Congo. It's like, be absolutely sure rapists abound. You know, it's like, well, why don't you have more security there? Like, hire more guards, put more cameras. Like, there are ways. We know how to tackle crime. You have a fucking building. It's not the White House where people can go with la cocaína inside and you don't know who did it. Right? You can have more security than the White House and videotape everything because everything is public. And then no one is going to do any type of assault or any offensive stuff, right? And of course, it was also the fact that they would completely ignore when women were putting hands on male cosplayers, something that I saw quite regularly with many male streamers. Like, they would do it on camera with no shame. Especially if the male cosplayer would choose a character that the woman was shipping. And that was, like, not even discussed. It wasn't even brought up. Like, that doesn't happen, right? So it was, like, all of this disgusting ideology that was being pushed and was making geek culture unfun. Like, instead of talking about our favorite superheroes, instead of discussing how cool the next comic book is going to be, we were now talking about social issues and police and legislation and vote Democrat and the Democrats will stop it. Like, Nancy Pelosi is going to come into the convention and under her gaze, no man is going to, you know, like, but anyway, right. One other thing that happened were a lot of internet memes, I guess. Some of them very bizarre and unhinged, creating a completely parallel universe. And I want to talk about one in particular. Like this is one that was going around on Twitter. It was constantly mocked and ridiculed. And you have this convention where, of course, you know, it's a girl that wants to buy a comic book. And out there's this Supergirl lady, which I guess like is being harassed by this guy who is taking pictures of her without her consent. Right, but in this situation, consent is about taking pictures. All right, like I just want to understand because like these people muddy the language. I think like putting your hands on a woman's tushy without her consent is a completely different category and represents a much worse social danger than taking pictures of a cosplayer without her consent. But apparently this guy, right, picks up a club and he goes in order to beat up this guy, right? So the entire thing is absolutely ridiculous. That, like, let's assume this actually were to happen. First of all, the guy is not even committing a crime. Like, unless you're in Japan, taking pictures of people is not illegal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, in my country, it's not. Like, maybe it's different in the United States. Like, the worst that can happen is you get thrown off the convention. I mean, if I'm cosplaying, I expect that people will want to take pictures with me. If my cosplay is great, in fact, that's humbling, right? Like, that's something that shows that I have a good cosplay. So whatever, you can make the argument that it's against the code of conduct of the convention, or maybe he stepped out of a line. But again, like, he should be escorted out. If you actually take a baseball bat and go after a person in order to beat them up, that's like downright criminal. Like, you're going to end up in prison. You're not allowed to do this, right? Like, you're not allowed to take the law into your own hands. But anyway, I remember, like, this comic really irked me. And today I found out that someone actually has the event on photo. Like, this actually happened in the real world. And I was like, well, no fucking way. No fucking way. Like, you're telling me that this is based on a real event? Like someone actually did it? Yes. Yes, someone actually did it. So can we see the footage? So here you have the lady cosplayer, which, according to the comic book, definitely doesn't want to be filmed, right? She doesn't want to be photographed. And right here in the background is the artist of the comic. Right here in the background is Mr. Dobson, who made this comic. And what this tells me is that a lot of the feminists at the time had a very wild imagination. Incredibly wild. And I think, like, also because they can't differentiate fact from fiction, because they consider, like, the way a female character is depicted in a video game or in a comic book to actually affect women in real life. Like if you have a vivid imagination and you also have the inability of differentiating fact from fiction, that can cause severe problems. Yes, like, I mean, you would be living in a fantasy land. But what's more interesting is, now that we peer into the mind of a male feminist, there seems to be a lot of jealousy. At least this is what I'm getting, right? Like, you have this girl that's cosplaying, and she is posing like an OnlyFans lady, but back then there were no OnlyFans, right? So she is posing for this photographer, and I think he's upset that she's not interested in him, and she's interested in this other guy. So this is why, in his mind, which is expressed through the comic, he is so violent. Let me know what you guys think, though, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.